Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today I want to make a Path of Exile 2 video to kind of give you guys a follow-up to my intro when I went over the patch notes. I was in Brazil at the time, there's a lot of stuff happening, and now I've actually played the game a lot. I was about a week late, a little bit less. I did play from Brazil, but obviously that's not the easiest thing from paper-thin laptop on hotel internet. When I got home, I've been playing a lot since, and I plan to continue playing Path of Exile 2. It has been good. Path of Exile 2 has reached a point, in my opinion, where the game is quite fun and good to play like all the time. We were not at this point until 0.3, until this major patch happened. In my opinion, it's a very difficult thing to kind of see coming. A lot of the time, there's a new patch, they change a number of things, and, it can sound really good, and you play it, a lot of the things don't actually turn out how they anticipated, like the devs did, and ultimately, things get better over time. But the main way that I would say Path of Exile 2 existed until this patch was fun to try the new characters, to try some of the new content, but it was not fun to just days on end just grind through the map system, the Waystone system. It was just not fun to do that. It was fun to kind of make new characters and try some new builds and stuff, and that was pretty much it. And that would last a week, 2, maybe 3, and then, you'd play something else. Now, we've kind of hit that tipping point where they've changed things sufficiently to where, in my opinion, it is actually fun to just keep playing the game. And that is a really big point in the game for them, because I think there's been a lot of people who have been pretty critical about Path of Exile 2, have they done things differently versus Path of Exile 1, and this, at least from my side of things, is a really redeeming point in the game's history, because we are now at a point where Path of Exile 2, I think, actually will begin to rival Path of Exile 1 on a mechanics basis. So really amazing stuff on that end. So why is that? The crafting, I did say that it was still going to be like gambling, but gambling less. Actually, I was a little bit wrong in that prediction. There are ways that you can now deterministically craft top-tier items in Path of Exile 2. This was something that I never thought we would see in this game, given the state of crafting in the previous months in Path of Exile 2 is literally just like gambling and bricking items nonstop. Now we have actual crafting, while the methods to craft are much more rudimentary than Path of Exile 1. I think they're at a point where it can act as an entry level to a deep crafting system for people that haven't played Path of Exile 1. So I think they did a fantastic job with that. They have a lot of new omens that accomplish that. The essences, they have new effects. They work a little bit differently. They also accomplish that. The new currencies and tiers of like transmutation orbs, that kind of stuff, also accomplishes that. It is still like an RNG-based system, but it's a lot better. It feels a lot better, and it's more compelling to play, because most importantly, when you play the game, you can always feel like you can get an upgrade at almost any given point. And it's not the case where you can just like buy the best gear all the time. You can actually craft some of the best gear, and a lot of the best gear on the market right now, if you're playing Trade League, is crafted. It's not just random finds and just the gambling system, basically. And this also affects the rarity problem that they have. So one issue that they had in Path of Exile 2 is one of the stats is basically Magic Find. You would want Magic Find on your gear to actually be able to find enough loot to make sense to play. They did actually address this with their crafting update, because there are like 2 types of items that you'd like to find. You'd like to find like unique items type of thing, and you'd like to find maybe really high tier rares, but most of those are really dropping off of bosses anyway. And the bosses have a huge amount of built-in Magic Find, so the Magic Find you have on your gear doesn't actually apply to bosses all that much. And the other form of magic finding, or other playing the game, is with no magic find. You might be thinking, why do you want to play with no magic find? Yes, you get less currency, that's true, but the items will drop regularly in their white format, like blank items, instead of blue and rares. And the white items are actually more valuable this patch because of their update to Transmutation Orb, and augmentation orb tiers. If you get like a white Imperial helmet, for example, it's better that it comes white than it comes blue, or even rare, because if it's white, you can start by crafting the item with a tier 3 transmutation orb to get like a tier 1 or tier 2 affix. And then if it's a good one, you can use a tier 3 augmentation orb to get another really good affix. And if it gets a good affix that you actually want, you can use like an essence and kind of go from there. So the magic find on gear thing is still a little bit of a problem, but they actually did a really good job in kind of finding a middle solution here where people can still play magic find characters, but you can play the game effectively with no magic find at all on your character. You just have to approach it a little bit differently. The new sprint mechanic where you run through maps I thought would be really good. It's better than I thought. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, it actually feels really, really good. I don't think the game is at a point where you need more than 30 movement speed to actually have fun playing the game if you regularly use the sprint mechanic and are good at using the sprint mechanic. It's a little bit of a skill check also, but I think that's a good thing. So that's also a really big win. A few things I was wrong about in my prediction video. I said that weapon-based classes like, warrior with big hammer, they would get absolutely owned this patch. They didn't. The crafting update was so potent that the type of gear these characters are getting was unfathomable before this patch. If you go and see what some of the characters are wielding in like the top 100 of every given class, it's like everyone's got like a top end 1000 damage hammer. Before 0.3, nobody had that. Okay, like a couple people had that. And now everybody's got it. So the overall power in gear is way higher, and this actually disproportionately benefits weapons classes. This is not something I really factored in because honestly, I didn't give them that much credit that the crafting update would be so significant. It was significant, and the weapons are winning a lot from that change. I was also wrong about armor. Now, armor, in theory, is still garbage. The idea that the elemental damage applied from your armor through the new stats would be good, I was wrong about, not because it's mechanically off, it's because the values on these affixes are insane. I thought we'd have 10% type of thing, because on the passive tree, the biggest node is 30. And it's right by the warrior. It's kind of hard for other classes to actually even approach the node. So I thought on gear it'd be 10 or 20%. You can get 43% on gloves, and on boots, and on your helmet, and on your shield. With the implicit, you can get 72 or something on your chest piece, then the passive tree. Then the socketables from the ultimatum mechanic. You can basically have 400% of your armor applied to elemental damage. And is that good enough? Yes, it is actually good enough. So armor is actually very good this patch. I was also wrong about deflection. Now, to my credit, I wasn't wrong about deflection. GG was wrong about deflection, because in the Q&A for their patch announcement that I based my initial assessment of, they said, yes, you can get your deflection rating to 100%. I don't know how they could possibly say that, because a couple days later, they released the deflection formula, and it's literally a formula of a limit that approaches 100%. And if you're not familiar with the math behind that, basically, whatever your deflection rating is, it can never reach 100%. It is impossible. You could have billions of deflection rating. Your deflection chance will be 99.999. It will never be 100%. So possibly they nerfed it last minute, and they didn't tell the guy doing the Q&A. I don't know how that happened. So yeah, I thought deflection would be really good because I assumed it'd be pretty easy to get 100%. It's impossible to get 100%. So evasion characters actually did get a little bit nerfed, because deflection is one of the weaker mechanics that they introduced this patch for defenses. And yeah, that is a pretty good thing. Despite that, almost everyone's playing Deadeye, so obviously evasion is still good. They also nerfed evasion baseline on the percentages, which affects a few things disproportionately. But again, almost everyone started the league by playing a Deadeye. It wasn't that bad. Okay, it wasn't that bad. Another undocumented change is they nerfed the hybrid rolls on gear. So before, if you had like a piece that was just armor, you'd get like, let's say it would cap out, and as an example, at like 2,000 armor, okay? And then you'd get like an energy shield chest, and then it'd cap out at like 1,000 energy shield. And then you'd get a chest that was both armor and energy shield, and before this patch, you could get it to very, very close to those values. You could get it to like 1,800 armor and 900 energy shield. And that's why hybrid gear is actually really good. A huge amount of players was using hybrid gear. The affixes that roll on hybrid gear were across the board massively nerfed to the point where most pieces of gear cannot even get halfway. So now if an armor could max out at 2,000, an energy shield at 1,000, it's almost impossible for most pieces of gear. The bases do differ, so some of them do, but most of them don't. Most of them don't even go to 1,000 armor and 500 energy shield. So then, like, what's the point of using hybrid gear? Most of the time, honestly, there isn't a point in using hybrid gear. I think they kind of over-nerfed hybrid gear. It probably needs to be brought up at least slightly. I think the reason that they did this is because the new bonuses are really powerful, and hybrid gear can have both of them. For example, if you want deflection and armor applies the elemental damage on an armor evasion piece of gear, you could get both of those bonuses. So to them, it might make sense that the base defenses on this piece of gear are less than half of each of the maximum of the alternative, but in practice, yeah, it doesn't really work out that way. Hybrid gear is kind of garbage. If you do want to play a character that utilizes hybrid defenses, you're typically going to want to use standalone pieces. So, for example, on my initial Infernalist, where I wanted to use armor and energy shield, I would use just a piece with only armor, and then I would use a piece with only energy shield. And that seems to be the better approach in most use cases anyway. And while defense changes are overall massive wins across the board, the huge question mark here is like, how do they not buff life? It kind of blows my mind. Because of the improved crafting systems, you're basically able to leverage power through gear. What was the most powerful gear? Energy shield. There's people with 30,000 energy shield playing the game right now, and if you play a life-based character, you will struggle to get over 3,000. And let me just paint the picture there. So if you had a life character with 3,000 health, let's say you had quadrillions of armor and it applied to elemental damage, and damage over time or chaos damage didn't exist. It would still pretty much be the same as having no defenses with 30,000 energy shield, because the armor reduction cap is 90%. Yeah. While evasion is kind of more balanced, while armor is finally good, life is just giga trash. Like, unbelievably bad. To the point where you actually do want to utilize armor, but you want to use it on an energy shield character. Or in my case right now, I'm playing a Titan, and I only have like 2,800 life, and I'm using Mind over Matter, and I just put mana on everything. I have like 1,700 mana, and I just put Life Tap on all my skills. I literally just use the mana for health, and it's like 60% more health for 1 point, right? But like, the fact that I have to do that is ridiculous. You know, this should not be a thing. The balance between life and energy shield has never been more off than any patch, even when compared to Path of Exile 1. It's hilarious. To kind of stress this point further, this same character, the Titan that I'm playing, it's a life-based character. It also has Mind over Matter, right? So I'm next to those points, and I'm Titan, so I have 50% bonus effect. So I can get 7 strength stun threshold, 7 strength stun threshold, and then 3% health. And I have no percent health on my character. And I'm right there. There are no travel nodes, and I'm playing life. I did the math, and those points are still not worth it. I'm literally playing an Ascendancy that has a bonus to those passives. They are literally some of the best life passives on the entire skill tree, and there's very few of those, by the way, and it's still not worth the 3 points to get them. Like, I did the math, and it literally increases my overall health total by less than 1% per point. I literally might as well get armor. Like, 22% armor is better than that. It's like 22% armor is like 5% more armor, which is not 5% more health, but it's not less than 1. It's like 3 or something, right? So, like, life is just... It's just comical. It's like a joke. It's like they forgot about the fact that people play builds that utilize life pools. So that doesn't make sense. And to kind of add a little bit more punishment to the injury here, their last update with the whole Abyss and Abyssal stuff, the content-wise, super good, super cool. I love it. The crafting implications, amazing. Why do the mobs do so much chaos damage? Like, no, I think this needs talking about. Like, really. Life is in the absolute dumpster, and they release a mechanic that, like, 80% of the damage is trivialized. It goes to 0 if you use Chaos Inoculation. You're immune to chaos damage. Why would they do that? Why would you make a mechanic where 80% of the things that can kill you is from chaos damage? How does that make sense? And I said this on stream once. It's like the comparison for that would be like, imagine there was a keystone on the passive tree where it was, you cannot have your energy shield becomes 1, immune to physical damage. Like, how ridiculous would that be, right? That obviously everyone would take that if they're not energy shield. That's literally the equivalent of Chaos Inoculation right now. And, like, if that passive existed, imagine if GGG made their next update where, like, all the mobs, they only do physical damage, right? So you just like, oh, wait, we just get that point, and then everything is completely trivial. Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. That's literally the whole thing. So it's a real WTF moment with the chaos damage and the punishment to life builds, but all the rest was good. And overall, the endgame mapping system still feels a bit mediocre, I would say, but the changes to everything else makes it fun enough to continue playing. So overall, I do plan to continue playing Path of Exile 2. You know, if I do stress my arm a little bit too much, might have to go a little bit easy. I don't imagine playing Path of Exile 2, you know, year-round or anything like that, but I absolutely see myself playing more than I have in the past. The only other thing I want to mention is overall the game, unless you're playing life-based builds, is overall a bit too easy, and we're kind of settled into the clear speed meta. This is a dangerous point for them, and I'm kind of curious to see how they'll handle it in the future, because one thing that people don't like is to get nerfed. So I also don't think that they want Path of Exile 2 so early in its development cycle to reach the point where, you know, it's like clear speed meta. And they're kind of afraid to nerf big time to kind of crawl it back to maybe their original intentions, to the more ruthless style gameplay. I don't know where they'll go with that, but I do feel it is a little bit concerning that the overall game is as easy as it is in the end game so early in development. On that, we'll have to see future patches. And I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.